Welcome to episode 3 of explainED. We're doing a little impromptu conversation. Shaun's been super helpful already.
My God, I didn't even realize we were recording yet.
And today we thought we'd just talk amongst ourselves about the challenges and things that schools need to think about when approaching AI. It's obviously a lengthy list, but there are ways to approach it and ways to think about it. We've all kind of dabbled in this in our different schools and districts in different ways, but Renee, you're probably further into it than Shaun or I. What are your big takeaways already that you, if you had to go back in time and say, hey, Renee, think about this, what would you pull out?
Well, I think just doing a little background, without our state leading the charge with this, it does, and I feel the need to be on top of it because it's moving so quickly. We decided early in the year, it was really, why am I having trouble talking today? Yeah.
It's because I pushed record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We decided early in the year that we needed some guidelines, no policy, but just guidelines on AI use for the district. So we Teach AI has a really good tool, kind of like a template you can use, which is what we used, tied with our section in our handbook about academic integrity. That's the big piece. So going back in time, like that's the number one concern on teachers' minds is how do we deal with cheating in AI?
Right.
So the first piece of that is, as digital leaders, to reframe the conversation away from that, because it's another technology tool. We can't just approach it, oh, this is a new tool to cheat. Oh, well, that's what the calculator was, and that's what Wikipedia was, and that's,
Right.
So like it's continuing to reframe the conversation toward academic integrity policies for schools, and universities are doing the same.
I want to go back to something that you said that I think is particular to Vermont. One of the things about Vermont, for folks that don't know, is that there's a whole lot of, there's different terms for it, but local control. So, and which is wonderful and dangerous all at the same time, because every school is doing and approaching the work differently. That includes instruction, curriculum, everything. So when we toss AI into the mix, every school again is approaching it or not in a much different way. And so you have, like, Renee is further into the process than Shaun or I might be. Then you have districts that aren't in the process at all. You have others that are banning it. You have others that are encouraging it. So there is this element of what leadership at the state level could help. There's also, like, would we want the state to dictate how we approach this? And I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. But I think that's really interesting because I feel it in the curriculum realm all the time when I meet with my curriculum colleagues and they're doing a completely different math program or they're using something different and we're all in the same state. Heck, we're 2 miles apart. It's just really strange.
I think there needs to be room in Vermont for some commonality and, guidelines around AI use. Not dictating how to use it or what to use, but just general guidelines. And some states have really done a good job of creating that at the state level. North Carolina was one of the first states, and Massachusetts, I believe, just came out with theirs not that long ago. And then, of course, Australia led the charge. So they have some really good resources as well. We kind of looked at all of that. Well, not Massachusetts, but we looked at North Carolina's stuff and Australia's as well. But what teachers are wanting is a guide, like what can we use if we decide to use it? We're not mandating that teachers use it, but what can we use? We are constantly talking about data privacy issues. So what's safe to use for ourselves and our students? And then, how do we approach the academic integrity issue? And then, we haven't even had the conversations yet about equity and bias.
Right.
We've written that into our guidelines a little bit, but we haven't really even had that conversation at the staff level. My school, Essex High School, has an AI committee this year, which I'm facilitating. So that's why we've talked about this so much this year.
Shaun, what do you, you brought up something, we were chatting before this about chatbots and use, and you brought up a really interesting point about the data privacy thing. It feels like with the PowerSchool breach that happened recently, and I'm feeling, I don't know if it's rampant across the state or not, but I'm feeling an increased need to pay attention to data privacy and to be really assertive about making sure that our data is private. But you're keeping up with a lot of the AI ins and outs in the news and everything. What do we need to be thinking about in terms of data privacy? Like how deep?
Yeah, specifically today, I was thinking, people are making chatbots to use like professionally, which, I think can be great. And if you pay for ChatGPT, you can turn off that they use it for training. But I don't know if that applies to like your, custom GPTs, like your own little chatbots that you make. And it used to be that, unless I'm mistaken, you were able to, you could only share those with other people who paid for it. Now that's not the case. You can make a bot and then anyone can use it. So I'm just like wondering, like, if people are using it to like put in data about themselves, I don't know if it gets trained on that or not. Like if OpenAI or whoever can use that. So I think you kind of have to assume that it is being used until you can find out otherwise. So,
I haven't heard any news. Do either of you follow the Student Data Privacy Consortium stuff at all? Like, I haven't heard if there has been successful student data privacy agreements with any of the AI vendors.
There are. Yeah. So like School AI, I know you can get that.
Okay.
And Magic School, you can get if you pay for it, they'll sign. If you don't pay for it, they won't. Yep. It's the old thing where, 99% of the time, if the product's free, then you're the product.
Right.
So, I assume Magic School will somehow extract something from you if you use the free one. And in that case, it could be the data you put in. But
we talked about too, Gemini and Notebook LM we were wondering if that was covered under our Google Workspace agreement for data privacy.
Right. And we have some control as Google admins to be able to set certain things as well. So it's something to investigate for sure.
Well, I really think it is, I'm like 90% certain, because like in conversations with my tech director, he's like willing to turn it on. So
yeah, he wouldn't do that unless.
Yeah, he wouldn't do that unless he knew, and
well, and the terms for Gemini has changed, yes, in Workspace. Because it used to be 18 plus, and now I think there's a version for education.
Yeah.
For students.
On that note, how do you this is something I'm struggling with. So I think there's this layer, Renee, you teed this up. You said, we started with guidelines and kind of that philosophy. And then there's the structure of student data privacy and how are we doing that? Those are kind of logistical, administrative level things. Let's just say that. Then there's teacher training. And I think teacher training can be divided into two parts. How do I use this as a teacher for me? And then how do I use this with students? And then there's students, right? And what I worry about in our district is that conversations are immediately skipping to the student part, where it's this irony that this tool is moving so stinking fast. Yeah, I think I need to move slower and make sure those guidelines are there, the policies are in place, that the data privacy is there, and that teachers know how to use it for themselves before they start using it with kids full bore. Is that what you two are seeing too?
No.
Okay, good.
Not in my district. We specifically, because the high school is kind of leading the charge because of our committee. So we specifically decided to start with the adults in the building. Like our goal was not about student use at all. Our teachers using it with students, some are.
Yep.
And so I've helped them navigate that a little bit, and what tools they're allowed to use with students, and just giving the framework. My last video, I did a video about the AI assessment framework, Leon Furs. That's just one framework to use because you have to be really clear about kids. If you're allowing AI use, what are you allowing it for?
Right.
Are you just allowing it for revision? Like as a collaboration partner, are you allowing it for brainstorming? Obviously I don't think anyone is ready to jump into full AI use with students, which I think is smart, because we're not there. But yeah, the tricky part is the PD part, I think, because what I experience, I know Shaun experiences, I'm not sure what it's like in your district, Mike, but especially when it's something that's not mandatory, getting participation from teachers and just even finding the time to do PD is really challenging. They want it. Like my teacher, we did an exit ticket after a staff meeting when we talked about AI, and almost everyone that answered is interested in further PD, but it's just how to go about doing that is the tough part.
Do you think, you both know my stance on whole group tech trainings, but Shaun, you've done some smaller bouts with individual teachers, more in like a coaching mode. Do you think that's a tool that's more or less effective in terms of AI rollout?
Yeah. Particularly because there's generally there's an absence of direction from, and I'm not casting aspersions or whatever at anyone, but, so it's really, it just comes from the people who are really interested. And then you end up working with them and, learning how to how can I write my weekly newsletter faster? You can get 80% of it and then customize it, to personalize it. So it sounds like that kind of thing.
But don't you think what's difficult for us, we talked about this before, is that cognitive lift guilt?
Yes. Yes.
That's cheated. I think in particular working with educators that are used to working really hard, it's become a part of their identity that there has to be this cognitive lift to these things. So when we show them a way to speed up something, there's almost this guilt that they feel about how easy it was to do something, and that dips into that ethics conversation, but other things. But that's what I'm running into.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I can show somebody a super cool tool and how to use this, like translation. That was something that was taking us forever, and I was able to show people. And there was just this moment where they're like, "Yeah, but it usually takes me an hour, and it doesn't feel like I did it right." This way, I think it's this guilt and this feeling like they're shortchanging somehow.
Right. Like you've somehow absconded your duties by.
Yeah. it's a real personal thing. That's why I wonder about the coaching element, one-on-one coaching versus large group kind of trainings, which I think both can be balanced. But like in that one-on-one, you can have that debrief with an educator and hear that conversation and discuss that guilt, if you have a good relationship, and move, as, Adam Sparks would say, radical centrist, to bring you from one end to the other, wherever you are, like
to the center. Yeah.
So like, I think that's harder to do in a whole group setting when in the whole group, you have this group mentality about AI and the fear. But in the one-on-one, you can really make some small moves that I just think, I don't know.
Yes.
And I'm speaking for myself because I've got to strategize about how to do this here. And we haven't gotten there yet. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do it and make people feel safe.
Mm-hmm. I have two thoughts on what you were just saying, Mike. The verse made me think of our interview with Brian when he was saying, we're asking the wrong question. Maybe, the question is, do you feel like you need permission?
Right.
To allow yourself to use AI cognitively offload some of these tasks.
Right.
And like, maybe that's the approach. But also, I do agree to a certain point about the whole group PD, because obviously without mandating something, some people aren't going to want to use it. People are going to want to use it in different capacities and levels. But the approach I feel like is gaining some traction in our district is, if you think of it like a grassroots approach, like at a staff meeting in February, we had, I think, about 7 educators get up and just briefly share how they used AI in some way. And that was incredibly powerful, because then their colleagues were going up to them afterwards and saying, what did you use? And can you tell me more about that? And, I'm certainly fine with it spreading that way, because now people are starting to reach out to me and saying like, hey, so-and-so showed me brisk teaching. Could you show me how to use that? And even like my non-techie teachers, I've had a few reach out to me, and I've just briefly demonstrated how something worked with an AI tool, and they're like mind blown.
Nice.
Like, that's going to save me so much time. Yes, and that's okay. Yeah.
Renee, are you willing to talk about the bot that you are attempting to design? Just because I think it shows a different angle of approach in education to thinking about how to use these tools that is engaging for teachers and systems and leaders within the system. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. I had to, it's funny, you're talking about, feeling like they don't have permission, or like it's cheating for themselves to use it. I actually ran it through my supervisor, who ran it through our central office, to get permission to do this custom bot, just to make sure. I just wanted to make sure we weren't going down some road where somebody was going to be like, no, you can't do that. But it was actually my AI committee's idea, that we create a custom bot that helps teachers write their final reflection for their goals for the year. It's a task that everyone dreads, let's be honest. And just trying to make it a little bit easier, because sometimes it's hard to sit down and write a reflection. And so I built a bot through ChatGPT. You can upload the supporting documents, which I did, the 5D rubric and our continuous improvement plan, because we base our individual teaching goals on those 2 documents, and then prompted the chatbot to guide the teacher into creating their final reflection based on those documents and based on the goals that they've chosen for themselves. And we're going to try it out at a future staff meeting, hopefully, and see how it goes.
It's just so cool because yes, you want to make it easier, quote unquote, for teachers, but also one of the things that you talked about is making it more meaningful. like pushing it further for deeper reflection. And then as leaders in a district, you're always looking to how can we make this better connect to our framework, and how can we make this better connect to our CIP, and like you're solving multiple problems with that design, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Great. And Mike, you and I had talked about that's the unintended consequences that actually makes them.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this is the direction it's going to go in to create a better reflection than they would have on their own.
Well, and probably ultimately better goals at the beginning. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. Even though Shaun didn't like it, I liked it. I thought it was a good idea.
Well, I didn't even see it though. I just said the question about
everything I do.
It's a little critical. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah. I was just curious,
Be curious, not judgmental.
One thing I do like about it is that it will start possibly for some people a cognitive shift, that they see that there is value in doing, getting some of the drudgery out of the way. And then they're like, oh, yeah, now that I'm not concentrating on formatting, and here's this idea for a goal I didn't think of that I really like, I'll just change it slightly so it suits me better. And then, then you've used AI to, like you were saying, do something that's better than what you might have done. And people too, and they need to be taught to consider the, always put their own thinking on it, and to critically look at it and be like, is this somehow biased?
Right. Yeah. Well said, Shaun. See, you recovered from that. That was good.
Right. I think everyone should do everything with bots, probably.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. That's a whole
bots take over the world conversation.
Renee, come on, don't get them going. All right, we're good.
Wait, let's put it in foil head.
Yeah, we're gonna end episode 3 now. Okay, Shaun, now you can talk about robots.
Okay. So this morning